My nephew never drank water since he was little. He drank beverages instead of water. As a doctor, I advised my nephew that beverages are not water, and they contain a lot of additives. My sister-in-law, however, dismissed my concerns. Soon after, my nephew was diagnosed with uremia. Luckily, a kidney source was quickly found. Before the surgery, the attending doctor repeatedly reminded him to eat and drink. But during the operation, my nephew still choked on a lot of water, which ultimately led to the failure of the surgery. Upon investigation, we found that my nephew had drunk a lot of beverages before the surgery. My sister-in-law, however, blamed me, saying, "You said beverages aren't water." She calmly blamed me for all the mishaps. She then frantically strangled me with bean sprouts. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day my nephew was guzzling beverages. There are countless fun ways to watch crispy potato chips here. Amazing novels are now complete. Follow Debingza so you don't get lost. The exciting story begins now. My nephew was about to sit at the dining table as usual, staring intently at the drinks on the table, his face full of anticipation. I watched him skillfully pick up a bottle of drink, twist open the cap with a pop and tilt his head back for a big gulp. In less than a second, it was empty. Then he picked up a second bottle, and a third. In just a few seconds, he had guzzled down 8 bottles of drinks. My mother watched from the side, her face full of worry, and quickly urged, "Grandson, don't just drink beverages. Drink some water." My nephew pouted and grumbled. "Water has no taste. Beverages are sweet. I want to drink beverages." My sister-in-law, Zhang Fen, had a self-satisfied smile on her face and said, "If he likes to drink it, let him drink it. We should respect the child's wishes. Everyone has different eating habits. Even if we are his elders, we shouldn't interfere too much." After saying that, she turned to me, a hint of triumph in her eyes. "Xiao Ting, you've read a lot and seen a lot. Tell me, am I being open-minded or not? In my previous life, facing the same problem, as a doctor, out of concern for my nephew's health, I immediately strongly opposed it. I earnestly educated them that if they consistently replaced water with beverages, it would be a very unhealthy eating habit. Beverages contain a lot of sugar, and long-term excessive sugar intake would cause damage to the kidneys and easily lead to diabetes, gout, or even uremia. But my sister-in-law looked completely unconcerned. "Isn't it just drinking some beverages? It's not like our family can't afford it. Your aunt is just scaring you. Doctors always like to exaggerate. Drink whatever you like. Mom unconditionally supports you." Under my sister-in-law's indulgence, my nephew became even more reckless, completely replacing water with beverages. In less than 2 years, my nephew was diagnosed with uremia and had to go to the hospital for dialysis every week. Seeing my sister-in-law working and taking care of my nephew non-stop, and since I worked at the hospital, I voluntarily took on the task of caring for my nephew. However, my nephew not only didn't cooperate with the treatment but also ignored my and the doctor's warnings about not drinking beverages, often sneaking drinks. After I confiscated his drinks, Zhang Fen would secretly buy him more. When I caught her, Zhang Fen said nonchalantly, "He doesn't drink much. Just a little. It should be fine, right? The child is sick, and he only has this one small request. How can I as a mother not agree to it?" What pained me even more was that my nephew finally got a kidney transplant surgery. Before the surgery, his attending doctor and I repeatedly warned him to eat and drink before the surgery and to absolutely not eat anything. My nephew also promised well at the time. The doctor repeatedly confirmed with him if he had eaten or drunk anything, and he always answered no. Who would have thought that an accident would occur during the surgery? After general anesthesia, my nephew choked up a lot of water, which led to the failure of the surgery, and his condition rapidly deteriorated. Later, I learned from my nephew's roommate in the hospital that my sister-in-law had secretly given my nephew beverages before the surgery. I felt sorry for my nephew and couldn't help but scold my sister-in-law. "You knew he needed to eat and drink. Why did you secretly feed him beverages? And hide it from me and the doctor?" But unexpectedly, my sister-in-law retorted self-righteously, Beverages are not water. You said eat and drink. But you didn't say no beverages. I think it's just that you didn't do the surgery well and are looking for excuses to shirk responsibility. She became more and more agitated, and finally blamed everything on me, frantically strangling me with bean sprouts. That's how I lost my life. Facing this familiar scene again, looking at Zhang Fen's expectant eyes, I took a deep breath, tried to calm my surging emotions, and forced a smile, saying, I don't have children, so you're definitely better at parenting. Besides, he's your child, so how you raise him is up to you. In this life, I don't want to repeat the same mistakes. I don't want to be that thankless person anymore. I don't want to be a scapegoat anymore. If she wants to respect the child, then respect him. Anyway, it's not me who will get uremia in the end. After getting my affirmation, Zhang Fen's face was full of pride. She said haughtily, of course. After all, those online parenting videos weren't watched for nothing. Mom, your generation's ideas are outdated. We, people of the new era, must also keep pace with the times in parenting. Don't worry, Xiao Ting, when you have children in the future, just come to me for advice. Otherwise, wouldn't all my hard work on my nephew go to waste? I just smiled and didn't say anything. Her so-called new parenting concepts were just pieced together from the internet. Most of the parenting methods espoused by those so-called parenting experts were just to gain Lu Liang, traffic, attention, and had no scientific basis. But Zhang Fen regarded them as truth. Take the previous incident. For example, a parenting expert said that children should not be held, as it would make them dependent. So, during the confinement period, no matter how much the child cried, Zhang Fen would not hold him and would even stop my mother from holding him, saying this was called the crying immunity method, and that the child would be fine after crying for a while. The result? The child cried until he sighed and finally got better after surgery. Another parenting expert said that children's independence should be cultivated early. So, at just 2 months old, Zhang Fen wanted the child to sleep alone in a separate room, which led to the child lacking a sense of security for a long time. And what she was most proud of was her relaxed parenting philosophy, constantly advocating for respecting children and not interfering too much. Respecting children is a good thing, but she took it to an extreme. No matter whether it was good or bad, she would unconditionally respect and support it. Just like the drinking beverages incident. Even though it was harmful to the child, she stubbornly insisted on respecting the child's wishes. She smiled at my nephew and said, drink whatever you like. Mom respects and supports you. You know Mom is the most open-minded, absolutely democratic. My nephew was overjoyed to hear her say that. So he picked up another large bottle of beverage and drank it with his head tilted back. Listening to the gurgling sound of my nephew drinking the beverage, I sneered inwardly. Drink it. You're not far from uremia. From then on, I rarely went home. Every time I saw Zhang Fen, the hatred in my heart surged like a tide. I was really afraid that I wouldn't be able to control my emotions and strangle her one day. These days, my mother often calls me to complain. She sighs on the phone, saying that my nephew drinks beverages like water every day, sometimes more than a dozen bottles a day, and doesn't eat proper meals, only potato chips and instant noodles. She tried to persuade my nephew to drink more water and eat more. But my sister-in-law would say, if he doesn't like to eat, let him be, and even claimed that everyone's eating habits should be respected. My mother tried to educate my nephew when my sister-in-law wasn't around. But my nephew pushed her away, saying, my mom said that all your old people's parenting views are outdated. I don't want to listen to you. I'll do whatever I want. My mother was very helpless and wanted me to persuade him, saying, you're a doctor. He'll definitely listen to you. If my nephew keeps eating and drinking like this, his body will definitely break down. I could only helplessly say, he won't believe what I say either. He only believes those so-called parenting experts online. I could only suggest she talk to my brother. My mother sighed and said, I talked to your brother. But before he could say 2 sentences, they started arguing. My brother couldn't argue with my sister-in-law, so he just gave up. I remembered that in my previous life, My brother also tried to persuade Zhang Fen, saying that unconditional respect for children wouldn't work, and there were times when strictness was necessary. But Zhang Fen not only didn't listen but also mocked my brother for not knowing anything. She even posted online saying, "My husband's traditional parenting views are so terrifying." My brother was also helpless. After arguing with her a few times, he stopped interfering. He would only try to educate my nephew privately. But over the years, my nephew had been poisoned by Zhang Fen's open-minded parenting for too long and couldn't be corrected at all. When my brother tried to talk to him, he would retort, saying my brother was a strict and unenlightened parent, and that he hated his father. Thinking of this, I felt a little sorry for my brother. In my previous life, after Zhang Fen strangled me to death, my brother and mother were both sad and angry. They wanted to call the police to arrest her, but she pretended to be remorseful, knelt on the ground and begged them, saying she wanted to have one last meal with them before surrendering herself. My brother, out of consideration for their many years of marriage, agreed, but unexpectedly, she drugged their food and killed my brother and mother. These memories were like sharp blades, piercing my heart. I couldn't tell them what happened in my previous life. They wouldn't believe such a fantastical story. I could only think of other ways. I had a bit of a headache and could only helplessly tell my mother. Since he doesn't listen to my brother, he definitely won't listen to me. Just leave it alone. Anyway, he's your son. You won't harm him. My mother sighed a few times and hung up the phone. Under Zhang Fen's indulgence, my nephew's eating habits got worse and worse. Because he constantly drank beverages and ate junk food, his weight rapidly soared. At just 9 years old, he was almost 120 pounds. This caused him to gasp for breath after just a few steps. He clearly looked unhealthy. He also became even more averse to exercise, preferring to lie down rather than sit all day, completely lacking the vitality of a normal child. Because of his weight, my nephew was often ridiculed at school and given many nasty nicknames. Gradually, he developed a dislike for studying and often feigned illness to avoid going to school. After being caught feigning illness for a long time by my brother was very angry and wanted to educate my nephew. But my sister-in-law stopped him, saying, "If he doesn't want to go, then don't force him. Can't you be a little more open-minded? Who says people must study? Many dropouts don't still become successful?" My brother was furious at her twisted logic and loudly said, "Zhang Fen, if it weren't for your constant, new age, education, would a good child be raised like this? I don't care about other things. If you want to respect him and indulge him, that's fine, but studying is a big deal in life, and I will never allow you to let him mess around." My brother's attitude was firm. Zhang Fen could only curse. "You're so stubborn," before pushing my nephew off to school. However, my nephew only attended school for 2 days before he fainted and was sent to the hospital. We all thought he was faking it again this time. But unexpectedly, it was real. I had just finished a surgery when I received a call from my mother. When I arrived at my nephew's ward, I happened to hear his attending physician, Dr. Zhao, say, "The child has severe nutritional imbalance. He consumes too much sugar and too little vitamins and protein, which is why he's abnormally obese. From the current test results, his kidneys are also problematic. Does he usually not drink much water and only drinks beverages?" My mother was about to answer yes, but Zhang Fen pulled her back. Zhang Fen shook her head at the doctor and denied. No, doctor, don't worry, we remember. The child drinks water." The doctor clearly didn't believe her and said, "Really? If he drank water, the test results shouldn't be like this." Zhang Fen was a bit guilty but still insisted. "Yes, the child just loves snacks. But he still drinks water sometimes." The doctor still looked unconvinced but didn't bother to argue. He turned around and saw me. Dr. Zhao was a bit surprised. I smiled and explained, "I'm the child's aunt." Then I asked, "How are the test results?" Dr. Zhao frowned and said, "For now, the situation looks a bit grim. We'll only know for sure after all the test results are out." I nodded. Seeing Dr. Zhao's expression, I guessed my nephew's uremia would be diagnosed earlier. In my previous life, even though my nephew didn't listen to me and still drank beverages. My mother and I occasionally managed to get him to drink a little less. So his uremia was only discovered the following year. In this life, I didn't intervene, and my mother couldn't control him. So my nephew became even worse, drinking only beverages all day. So his illness likely developed earlier. Sure enough, after the test results came out, my nephew was diagnosed with uremia, a year earlier than in my previous life. Upon hearing this news, my mother felt like the sky was falling. She cried, "Oh, God, my grandson is so young. How could he get such a disease?" She then asked Dr. Zhao, "Doctor, are you sure the diagnosis is correct? A child this young shouldn't get this disease." Dr. Zhao also helplessly said, "The test results are correct. It's mainly caused by the child's unhealthy eating habits. Many people now like to replace water with beverages, which increases the burden on the kidneys. Moreover, the child is still so young, and doing this for a long time will make it even more severe." My mother listened and couldn't help but blame Zhang Fen. "It's all your fault. I told you not to drink only beverages without water. But you insisted on respecting the child. Respecting a clearly bad habit. What's there to respect? The child is so young and doesn't know anything. As an adult, if you don't guide him, what's the use of blindly respecting him? Now look, respecting him has led to uremia. What are we going to do?" "Oh, my poor grandson." Zhang Fen was unhappy and retorted. "How was I supposed to know it would be this serious? I just thought the child didn't like plain water and didn't want to force him. How was I supposed to know that drinking some beverages would make him like this?" As she spoke, she saw me standing by and suddenly threw the blame on me. "It's all Xiao Ting's fault. You're a doctor. You must have known that this wasn't good for him. So why didn't you say anything? If you had told us earlier, he wouldn't be this serious now." I was practically laughing with anger. In my previous life, I told her, and she didn't listen anyway. In this life, I didn't say anything, and she still blamed me. It's like I was born to be her scapegoat. I said, "Would it have been useful if I said anything? Haven't mom and brother told you enough every day? They told you this was wrong and that you needed to manage my nephew. Did you listen?" Perhaps remembering what she had said to my mother and brother before, Zhang Fen felt a bit guilty. But she still argued stubbornly. "That's different. You're a doctor. I would definitely listen to what you say. But why didn't you say anything? Are you deliberately trying to harm my nephew? You're his aunt. How can you be so vicious?" Even though I was mentally prepared, I was still exasperated by her unreasonable ramblings. I said, "Zhang Fen, can you please shake your brain clear before you talk to me? You said I'm a doctor and you'd listen to me. Then, when my nephew was just born, and you insisted on not letting anyone hold him when he cried. I even advised you that prolonged crying can lead to intestinal gas or even hernias in infants. Did you listen then? When he was just 2 months old, you wanted him to sleep alone in a separate room. I told you that a child so young sleeping alone can lead to a lack of security. Did you listen? You have your own set of theories. And you won't listen to anything we say. Now that something has happened, you're blaming me for not telling you. Do you think what you're saying makes sense?" Zhang Fen was full of indignation and refused to admit that my nephew's current situation was caused by her. She continued to argue, "It's not necessarily caused by drinking beverages. Maybe this disease is in your Wang family's genes. Anyway, you can't blame me." I felt there was no point in continuing the conversation and stopped arguing with her. My nephew, like in my previous life, needed to come to the hospital for dialysis every week. My mother was old and not in good health, so accompanying my nephew for dialysis was a bit difficult for her. My brother often traveled for work and was rarely home. So, Zhang Fen had to work and take care of the child at the same time. Gradually, she felt overwhelmed. After a month or so, she started complaining that she couldn't take it anymore. In my previous life, when I saw her like this, I voluntarily told her I would take care of my nephew. After rebirth, I never brought it up again. Unexpectedly, Zhang Fen actually asked me for help. "Xiao Ting, you see, I have to work every day. And my nephew needs dialysis twice a week. It's not good for me to keep asking for leave. Since you work at the hospital anyway, why don't you help take care of him? Her attitude was quite good at this moment. But I knew her too well. She always used people when she needed them and then discarded them. Now that she needed me, her attitude was good. But as soon as there was a problem, I would definitely be the scapegoat. So, I refused without even thinking. Sister-in-law, you also see that I have so many patients every day. And my surgeries are fully booked. Where do I have time to take care of my nephew? If I'm not careful and something goes wrong, I can't bear the responsibility. Since you feel you can't take care of the child, why don't you just quit your job? Anyway, your salary is so low. And it's not like you're never sick. Weren't you always faking illness and taking leave every other day? I heard from my brother that your boss is already unhappy. You also complain every day that you're unhappy with your job. Why not quit and focus on taking care of your nephew? A child is always better cared for by their own parent. Zhang Fen was smiling a second ago. And then her face instantly changed. She loudly said, "Xiao Ting, you're still my nephew's aunt. What's wrong with helping to take care of him? How can you be such a heartless aunt? Other people's aunts buy things for their children and spoil them like their own. How can you be so cold-blooded and not treat us as family?" Seeing her self-righteous look, it was as if I had committed a heinous crime. But wasn't I good to my nephew before? In my previous life, I was extremely busy with work. But I still tried my best to make time for him. Because I felt sorry for him being sick at such a young age. I was very kind to him. I would try my best to satisfy anything he wanted. But how did he treat me? Not only was he not grateful, but he also thought everything I did was a given. As soon as I didn't do something to his liking, he would curse me, calling me the Wang family's money-losing commodity, and saying that I took care of him to curry favor and to get a share of the Wang family's property. I didn't believe a child could say such things. It must have been Zhang Fen constantly saying these things in front of him. So, hearing Zhang Fen say this, I smiled sarcastically. "Zhang Fen, when you needed me, you remembered I was family. When my nephew called me a money-losing commodity and an old maid who couldn't get married. Why didn't you remember all this? Haven't I been good to my nephew all these years? In the past, which of his formula milk or clothes wasn't bought by me? I poured my heart out. And you have no gratitude at all? I'm busy and don't have time to take care of an ungrateful person." After saying that, I directly ordered her to leave. Zhang Fen grumbled a few words and left. Zhang Fen finally had to take care of the child herself. But my nephew's condition not only didn't improve but kept worsening. One day, in my nephew's ward, I saw Zhang Fen frantically hiding beverages. That's when I realized she was still up to her old tricks. Dr. Zhao frowned as he looked at my nephew's latest test report. This shouldn't be happening. After so much dialysis, why hasn't the situation improved at all? It's even worsening faster. He looked up and asked Zhang Fen and my nephew with a serious expression. "Have you been drinking too many beverages again during this time?" Zhang Fen's eyes darted around. But she quickly shook her head and denied. No, doctor. Don't worry. We're careful." Dr. Zhao sighed heavily, his tone full of seriousness and concern. "You absolutely must not drink only beverages like before. Understand? This is not a joke. Even if the child makes a fuss about drinking, you absolutely cannot be soft-hearted. Otherwise, all the previous treatment will be in vain." Zhang Fen nodded repeatedly, her face full of forced smiles. But as soon as Dr. Zhao left, I saw her, as if by magic, pull out another bottle of beverage from her bag and hand it to my nephew. My nephew's eyes instantly lit up. And he cheered excitedly. "Mom, you're so good. Grandma and Dad make me drink plain water every day. I'm almost sick of it. Beverages are so much better." Zhang Fen smiled and patted his head, a look of indulgence on her face. "I'm your mom. Of course I have to spoil you. Grandma watches you closely at home. But out here, Mom definitely has to satisfy you." My nephew still asked worriedly. "But Dr. Zhao said we absolutely mustn't drink them. If I drink them, will my illness not get better?" Zhang Fen waved her hand carelessly. "He said not to use beverages as water. Not that you can't drink them at all. What's wrong with just one bottle? Doctors just love to exaggerate. Don't take it to heart." Only then did my nephew completely relax and tilt his head back. Taking big gulps, The gurgling sound in the ward was particularly jarring. When Zhang Fen went out to pay the bill, she happened to run into me. I immediately said sarcastically, "Oh, isn't this the busy Dr. Wang? You said you were so busy you couldn't stand still. So how do you have time to visit my nephew?" I ignored her and pushed open the door and entered the ward. She snorted coldly behind me and turned to leave. When I entered the ward, my nephew was fumbling to stuff the beverage bottle under the covers. I helplessly said, "Don't hide it. I already saw it." After being exposed, my nephew not only didn't feel ashamed but stubbornly stuck out his neck and said, "So what if you saw it? My mom said I can drink what I want. And you all have to respect my wishes. No one has the right to control me but myself." I looked at him, a wave of sadness washing over me. I sneered, "You want to listen to your mom and court death? Can I stop you? You're young. You might not have heard the saying. The love of parents for their children is profound and far-reaching. It means that truly loving parents will consider their children's future. Do you think your mom has done that? She clearly knows that drinking beverages will harm you. Yet she still lets you drink them. You're having a good time drinking now. But every time you do dialysis, you're in excruciating pain. Is that what you want? Do you really think she's doing this for your own good?" My nephew was a bit confused by what I said, a hint of bewilderment flashing in his eyes. But he still stubbornly turned his head away. I didn't say anything more. I shook my head and got up to leave. I want to see if my nephew will hate Zhang Fen when he finally understands how all of this was caused. I told my brother, Wang Chang, about Zhang Fen secretly giving my nephew beverages. He was furious and immediately found Dr. Zhao to confirm the situation. After confirmation, he furiously went home and had a huge argument with Zhang Fen. This time, they argued more fiercely than ever before. Wang Chang was trembling with anger and even blurted out, "Divorce. I can't live like this anymore." Zhang Fen instantly broke down, crying and making a scene. "Wang Chang, do you have any conscience? Over the years, I've handled all the big and small things in this family. After the child got sick, I've been both a mother and a father. But you, as soon as something goes wrong, you push all the responsibility onto me. Has all my effort over the years been for nothing? None of you Wang family members have any conscience." My brother felt a bit soft-hearted hearing these words. After all, they were husband and wife for so many years and had many memories. Seeing this, I immediately stepped forward and said coldly, "Zhang Fen, what you're saying is truly heartless. Why is Wang Chang away from home all year round? Isn't it because he's working desperately to pay off your online loans? If you hadn't borrowed so much money for vanity, would he have to work so hard? Is he enjoying himself while traveling for work? And what about the household chores? When have you ever truly managed them? Hasn't mom always been busy with everything? You come home from work every day, and food is served to you. After eating, you sprawl on the sofa and don't even help mom clear the dishes. Have you done any housework? Even your underwear is washed by mom. If we're talking about hard work, mom is the one who's worked hard. She's at her age and still has to serve you. A living Buddha. You cold shoulder and mock her at the slightest dissatisfaction. As for the child, is it that we don't want to care for him? It's you who always says our parenting views are outdated and doesn't let us interfere. Look at what your so-called New Age education has turned the child into." My words made my brother's face even uglier, while Zhang Fen's eyes darted around guiltily. She then shouted at me in exasperation, "Wang Ting, you're an old maid who can't get married. What right do you have to meddle in our family affairs? You must be instigating things behind my back. That's why your brother is arguing with me. You're just a troublemaker." My brother, feeling protective of me, immediately flared up. "Zhang Fen, she's my own sister. How dare you say that to her? How much effort have I put into this family? Working myself to death over the years? Don't you have any idea? Our son has been raised like this because of you. I think you're the disaster of this family. This time, no matter what, I'm getting a divorce." Seeing my brother's firm attitude, Zhang Fen turned her gaze to my nephew and cried, "Son, are you just going to watch your dad and aunt bully me like this?" My nephew, who had been pondering things since hearing my words, suddenly shouted, "Dad, Auntie is right. You knew I couldn't drink beverages. But you still let me drink them. You don't love me at all. You just want to kill me. Zhang Fen hadn't expected her son to say that and was both angry and anxious. How can you think that of me? I'm your biological mother. How could I harm you? You yourself wanted to drink them. And I was just respecting your wishes. There aren't many open-minded mothers like me these days. I work so hard to take care of you. And I get this kind of treatment. You're really an ungrateful child. My nephew also lost his temper. If you don't want to take care of me, then don't. Anyway, you taking care of me is just harming me. Zhang Fen completely gave up. Fine. You all despise me. Then let's get divorced. After I leave you, I can find someone better and have a more obedient son. No need to suffer here. But let me tell you, the property must be divided equally. I can't let you get off easy. My brother agreed without hesitation. When it came to liquidating the assets, Zhang Fen was completely stunned. Looking at the almost zero asset list, she shrieked. Impossible. How can there be no savings? You must have hidden money behind my back. My brother smiled bitterly. You borrowed 700,000 in online loans back then. Over the years, all the family's savings have been used to pay off debts. All the money I earned also went into filling your holes. Where would there be any money left? Zhang Fen still wouldn't give up and said, what about the house? I want half of the house. My brother said coldly, have you forgotten? This house was transferred to Xiao Ting's name a long time ago. We did that so the creditors wouldn't seize it. And at that time, you also took 100,000 from Xiao Ting. I also unceremoniously added, Zhang Fen, you're really shameless. Even if the house were transferred back, it's still my brother's premarital property and has nothing to do with you. You've lived here for so many years for free. And you still want a share? In the end, Zhang Fen didn't get a single penny and could only leave my brother's house in disgrace after the divorce. On the day they received their divorce certificate, Zhang Fen appeared before me with a flamboyant, almost 50-year-old man. He had a thick gold chain around his neck and said triumphantly, see, my new husband has plenty of money. He said as long as I give him a son, he'll buy me a big villa. You can all live your bitter lives in that broken house. That's when we realized that during the divorce cooling off period, Zhang Fen had been introduced by her mother to this newly rich man from a demolition project and quickly started a relationship with him. Looking at her arrogant demeanor, I couldn't help but say, congratulations, Ms. Zhang. However, I must remind you that you might not have the chance to live in a villa. Have you forgotten that your uterus was injured during childbirth? The doctor said it's very difficult for you to get pregnant again. Back then, Zhang Fen insisted on a natural birth, which resulted in uterine damage. I was afraid she'd be sad, so I never told her the truth. Zhang Fen's face instantly turned pale, and she shrieked, you're lying. You're just jealous of me. You don't want me to be well. So you're deliberately making things up. The man beside her instantly changed his expression, pushed her away, and cursed. You rotten woman. How dare you trick me? I found you to have a son. If you can't have one, do you think I'll still support you? Dream on. Hurry up and return all the money I've spent on you these past few days. Zhang Fen desperately clutched her bag and shouted. Why should I return it? This money is what I deserve. You slept with me for so many days for free. It's a miracle I'm not asking you for money. The two of them argued fiercely in the street, attracting countless onlookers. I originally wanted to continue watching the show, but seeing my brother and mother's exhausted faces, I pulled them away. Later, I heard that the man didn't get his money back and went around telling everyone that Zhang Fen was scamming people into marriage and money. Now, Zhang Fen's subsequent blind dates all fell through because of this. The man even threatened to make sure she could never get married. Even worse, Zhang Fen was reported for privately embezzling company funds. And the person who reported her was me. In my previous life, when this happened, she cried and begged me to help her pay back the money. I, out of kinship, used my savings to cover the deficit. In this life, I wouldn't be soft-hearted again. I directly made her pay the price for her actions. The company gave her 3 days to repay the outstanding amount. Otherwise, they would sue her. Her parents and younger brother, fearing involvement, directly kicked her out of the house. With nowhere to go, Zhang Fen ran to my doorstep, crying and making a scene, kneeling and begging my brother. Husband, I know I was wrong. Let's get remarried. I'll definitely live a good life from now on. Please help me. My brother firmly rejected her. Then she turned to my nephew, tears and snot running down her face, saying, Son, can you bear to see your mom go to jail? Your dad won't help me. But you have to save your mom. My nephew turned away and said coldly, How you treated me back then. You should now be responsible for your own actions. Don't bother me. Seeing that begging us was useless, Zhang Fen started throwing a tantrum and threatening. If you don't help me, I'll come here every day and make sure none of you have a good life. Without a word, I called the police. When the police arrived, they kindly persuaded her to leave. Unexpectedly, she went crazy and started cursing at the police and even assaulted them. This made things much worse. She was detained for assaulting a police officer. Less than an hour after being released from the detention center, she was formally charged with embezzlement. This time, she would no longer be able to escape the law. She was eventually sentenced to 3 years in prison. When I heard this news, I felt a mix of emotions. Although it appeased the hatred in my heart, I also felt sad for this series of tragedies. 3 years passed in a flash. In these 3 years, my nephew's condition stabilized significantly under my mother's meticulous care. He even fortunately found a suitable kidney donor and was just waiting for the surgery. Although I hated Zhang Fen to the bone, I also hoped my nephew's surgery would be successful. After all, he was my nephew, and I didn't want to see my family heartbroken again. But who would have thought that fate would be so cruel? The day of my nephew's surgery was also the day Zhang Fen was released from prison. She had nothing after being released. Somehow, she heard that my nephew was going to have surgery and actually ran to the hospital. She completely disregarded that my nephew was about to enter the operating room. She pulled his hospital bed, crying and making a scene, insisting that my brother and nephew forgive her and take her home. The nurses and doctors on the side were anxious, urging them to quickly enter the operating room. But Zhang Fen simply wouldn't move. My nephew was flushed with anger and shouted, Are you crazy? Don't delay my surgery. Zhang Fen seemed stimulated by these words. She suddenly pulled out a small knife from her embrace and brutally stabbed my nephew, shouting, It's all your fault. If it weren't for curing your illness, why would your dad refuse to help me? You made me go to jail for 3 years. Go to hell. Everything happened too suddenly. By the time we reacted, my nephew had already fallen in a pool of blood. Despite the doctor's best efforts, they couldn't save his life. Zhang Fen was immediately subdued and taken away by the police. This time, she would pay an even heavier price for her crimes. She would spend the rest of her life in prison. Looking at my nephew's cold body, my brother and mother cried heartbreakingly. I couldn't help but shed tears too. My heart filled with regret and unwillingness. If I had been a little more persistent back then, could I have changed all this? But life has no, if only. Zhang Fen's selfishness and stubbornness destroyed a family and herself. After going through so much, my family and I were physically and mentally exhausted. But life had to go on. I believe that without the various shadows brought by Zhang Fen, we will eventually overcome the pain and embrace a new life. However, my nephew's passing will forever be an unhealed scar in our hearts, constantly reminding us that some mistakes, once made, can never be undone. The end.